Morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is spaciousness, creating the space in our lives, but through perception, through allowing things to be as they are, gives us the ability to be present. So in that space, we have more room to be, to respond. And so that's what we're going to have our conversation about today. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, and the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Good morning to everybody else who's joining us. Great to be here with you this morning. And today we're talking about spaciousness. And so many of us live very busy lives and can easily get overwhelmed by all the demands that face us in a day. For instance, a very demanding schedule, lots of things on the to-do list, lots of appointments, and it can be very easy to allow ourselves to become overwhelmed and stressed by what we're allowing ourselves to perceive as a barrage of circumstances. And when we talk about spaciousness, it's an inner state. Spaciousness is an inner state. And we can create a spaciousness for ourselves by the simple but not necessarily easy act of relaxing, releasing any resistance to the way things are, to release any striving to have things be different from how they are. Because once we allow things to be as they are, it doesn't mean necessarily settle in and allow it to persist that way forever. But when we allow things to be as they are, then we have a starting place to move from, in which to create change if there need be change. It's kind of working with the energy that is there rather than against it, utilizing that energy to create whatever transformation needs to be created rather than struggling against that energy. So this was from a really awesome conversation with a client yesterday, where things are starting to flow. It's like a log jam opened up in their lives. And what they were even able finally to identify as the logjam that had been there was their struggle in the context of their job to they had an idea of how the job should be, how it should be done. They had a need that they were pressing for, and it just made for misery and exhaustion and stagnation. And when they allowed themselves, and I'm not necessarily advocating this solution, but when they allowed themselves to detach, and in their case, they were like, well, I just don't care anymore. And I'm out of here ultimately. When they allowed themselves that detachment from the situation, they stopped resisting, they stopped fighting, they stopped struggling, and they started focusing their attention on things that they valued. And so instead of trying to fix something, they started instead generating something else. And what they were generating was a greater expression of their energy. They were allowing their energy to move into that creation. And in the process of doing that, the universe conspires to support them and assist them. And so opportunities are arising. They have more energy to do the things that they care about. Before, they were continuously exhausted because they were expending all this energy with their resistance and fighting. And so now they're at more of a place of choice, whereas before they were really playing out an emotional and positional dynamic from their childhood in the context of work. And when they allowed themselves to just release that, all of a sudden things started moving, and they started feeling more productive in their lives. And it was really, really quite remarkable how, by allowing things to be as they are, they were able then to create space, to create spaciousness. So going back to the first example of how we might feel overwhelmed with so many demands on our time and attention, when we are able to be present in the moment, then all those other demands cease to exist until we address them one by one. We can focus on this thing in this moment, and in that moment, that's all there is. So the overwhelm of these 95,000 things dissipates, at least for those moments of attention. So we're creating spaciousness by allowing things to be as they are. Good morning, good evening, Gia. How wonderful, wonderful to be having you join us. It's great to have you back. Welcome. So we're talking about creating spaciousness. So this comes up for me also because in my practice on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I book my clients pretty densely. So like Monday, I have a 12-hour day, and I deliberately, consciously intend to create spaciousness in my day. And as it was yesterday, one of my clients had rescheduled, and several clients just were complete before the scheduled end of the session. And so it was a day of flow and ease. And it was beautiful in that way. There was no struggle. I got to do all the things that I needed to do and that I wanted to take care of. And it was a really easy, spacious, productive, effective day. And I think that by creating, well, in my experience, by creating a clear intention, creating an intention of spaciousness, of ease, and using that as a way to continually redirect ourselves, rather than getting run away with ourselves and all the demands, looking at one thing at a time. It can make our lives so much more free. There's an experience of freedom, this ability to take a deep breath. I mean, it can be that simple to remember. I don't have to feel closed in or boxed in or overwhelmed or burdened. I can breathe and presence myself and create spaciousness, really through a clear intention. And we can also create spaciousness in our conversations with others. That's another arena to be looking at spaciousness. Oftentimes, we confine our relationships, ironically, with the intention to preserve them, right? So we won't say what's really there. We'll constrain ourselves, we'll restrict ourselves, we put other people in a box, we act like we're in a box, or we project like we're in a box. And there's not a lot of spaciousness in that. So there's an opportunity in communication to create greater spaciousness, greater space, greater room for being. And this was exemplified by another client in a conversation. So this client typically has sort of retreated and constricted and retracted themselves from situations rather than speak what was going on with them. And they broke through that and were able to speak from a space of love what was really going on for them, rather than bottling it all up, to express it from a space of presence and love. And what that did was it created much greater space for them to be able to breathe and to further expand themselves. And it also gave the other person an opportunity to interact in a very different way on a very different level. So Gia says, I love listening to your client's story. It's always inspiring. Gia, I agree. I am so inspired by my clients. I feel so grateful to have the opportunity to work with such remarkable people. So thank you for speaking that. It's true. They're very inspiring. And so there is another client, and this is also a place of spaciousness, right? So this other client is an older person and has begun, well, they wrote a book previously, and they have such a rich fantasy life where they create these elaborate stories. And so they recently decided to write a book, and to write this fantasy out. And they did that. And in the process of doing that, their life became so much more spacious. They became more at ease. They became more present with other people. They became more outgoing. And then um, he, he, he found that over the past several weeks, he was grumpier and less content and impatient and critical of himself in ways, old ways that had seemed to lighten up a bit. And what we recognized is that they had stopped writing. And so what was going on is that now that they finished the first book, they were looking at having to go and rewrite it, and it had been handwritten, so they were looking at having to get it digitized, and then all the edits and everything, getting it to publish. And I said to them, well, what was the original intention of writing this thing? It wasn't ever to publish a book. It was to just have the creative process, to have the act of creativity. And so in our conversation, creating spaciousness, we just said, well, why not just put it aside for right now? You're done. You don't have to create a book out of it. That wasn't the intention. What feels good to you? What will give you space? And here he decided to just start writing another book. He has ideas for 2 other ones, and he decided to just start doing that. And just the act of choosing what his desire was created this great space for him. So when we are in alignment with our essence and expressing our essence, we have this experience of spaciousness, of expression, of magnanimity, where we can be more generous of spirit with ourselves and with others. I have another client who, when they are engaged in their creative pursuit, they are much more at ease with the world as well. When they're not engaged in their pursuit, then they become more anxious and nervous. And so what does that tell us? When we are actively expressing our essence, engaged in those things that light us up, when we're doing from a space of inspiration, then there's just a deep fulfillment and spaciousness. It's really quite remarkable. Gia says, we were talking about the clients, and Gia says, all in your presence, they're healing and growing because of you, Mira. Well, Gia, I so appreciate you saying that. The thing, we're a dynamic. We create a wonderful dynamic. I can say that. And that I facilitate people, and it's such a privilege to do that. So also, I'm growing in the process. I'm gaining in insights and experience and wisdom based on what the people are sharing with me. And Gia says, having that mental and emotional space is a blessing. Yes, and I have to say that it's a wonderful blessing for me. It's a playground, where we get to talk about, explore, discover, transform things that are important, things that are the essence of being. And as we shift our beingness, we shift our relationship to ourselves, each other, and the world. And as we awaken, I believe that our awakening is the hope for the world, frankly. And so that's the work that I do with people that are influencers in the world, to be able to shift our beingness and create greater spaciousness around that, and the potentials that we have. So Rosalind says, I think it's funny that out of consciously doing nothing comes something. Is that openness related to permission or not suppressing? Yes. So, think about a hose, like a garden hose that you run water through. And think about when you crimp that hose, there's all this water jammed up, right? And when we allow ourselves to let go of that crimped hose, then there's room for the water to flow through. So the doing nothing, consciously doing nothing other than maybe releasing the stress, allowing what is, you're allowing that flow. And the thing about the flow is that it's ever changing. It may seem like the pressure of the water coming out is the same, but the water that's coming out is different, right? There's new water coming out in every moment, even though the rate of flow may be constant. And so, to your point, Rosalind, not suppression is the crimp in the hose. When we allow the hose to flow, then not only does the water run through, but it allows the plants to be watered, for example, right? It allows for the nurturance of the surrounding. It allows the hose to fill its function. So Rosalind says, crimp toes, great visualization to conceptualize openness. Thank you. It just popped into my head. So see there, that's another example of just allowing and being in the flow. These mornings together with you are a space of spaciousness for me, because I'm allowing myself to be this vehicle for life's expression. And it's not about me. It's about whatever's coming through, whatever's moving in our exchange here. And I had the opportunity to speak with one of my clients yesterday about who we are, what identity is. And this is a question that has been one of lots of hours and years of consideration for me. And I finally so far, shall we say, have come up with a working definition that truly does work for me. And that is that who I am, and I think who we all are, is life expressing itself through this unique vehicle. And the clearer the vehicle, the greater the ability for life to express the intended function of this vehicle. So each of us has our unique talents and our unique skills and our unique collection of impediments and excellence. And the thought of who I am being life expressing itself through me, and I get to observe that on a certain level. I get to stand back and say, oh, wow, isn't that interesting? What's up with that? Life present to itself. When I allow that who I am is life expressing itself, I don't have to necessarily trust myself. I can trust life. And that may be a leap, but I think it's such a powerful one to recognize. It's interesting because the conversation came up in the circumstance of saying, well, I don't trust myself. To be able to do that. And the client was saying, I don't trust myself to be able to do that, whatever that was. And so then we got into trust and the conversation of all trust being self-trust. And what I recognize is, while I may not trust the personality that I am to make the best choices all the time, I can trust life. And that means that there's room for bad choices also. That if bad choices emerge in the context of life, then I get to address those bad choices. And that's part of life expressing itself through me. So Gia says, what's the difference, Mira, between trusting you and trusting life as per you? So life has a greater wisdom in my awareness. Life has its own expression, like it is the all of everything. And we are each an individualized manifestation of life expressing itself in these myriad forms. And so it becomes less personal. It allows me to be in service to that energy. And it creates, for me anyway, it creates a much larger context for acceptance, for understanding, for all of it. So Rosalind says, I do notice openness for me is related to letting go of the outcome, but allowing the space for the possibilities. Perfect thing to say, Rosalind. I think I might talk about particle and wave tomorrow. I had an insight today that was just awesome for me, yesterday rather, that in the client session, that was awesome. And looking at the distinction between intention and goal, and thinking of that in the context of particle, wave and particle. So where intention is the wave that is opening to the possibilities and the movement of life that is beyond the limitations of things I can conceive, and the goal, which is a limited, defined outcome, which would be the particle, something that has already manifested. So anyway, interesting conversation. I've got to run, but I love you, and I am so grateful for these opportunities to have deep conversations and exploring new ways of thinking, hopefully. And I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel, and at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living Facebook pages. And until next time, so much love to you.